Texting CBS executives, "Let's shift gears," Colbert said. "Your image rehabilitation has been remarkable from mugshots to Marvel superheroes. Some critics suggest your carefully crafted persona glosses over the more complicated reality. Your thoughts?" This was when something changed in Downey's demeanor. His practiced smile disappeared entirely. "My thoughts are that you seem determined to create a moment at my expense tonight. I'm curious about the motivation." The audience fell silent, even the band leader stopped playing. The control room was described as pure panic. "I'm simply asking questions viewers want answered," Colbert countered. "That's my job." "Your job," Downey corrected sharply, "is to create entertaining television while allowing guests to promote their work. What you're doing is something else entirely. Perhaps you'd prefer softballs. I thought you appreciated intellectual conversation." "There's nothing intellectual about ambush journalism poorly disguised as entertainment," Downey responded. "Particularly when your producers agreed to different terms." A stagehand made a cutting motion across his throat, signaling to end the segment. "Ambush is a strong word," Colbert said with an uncomfortable laugh. "We're just having a conversation. A conversation involves mutual respect," Downey countered. "This feels intentionally antagonistic." The floor director approached the stage crew members, later revealed there was serious discussion about cutting the broadcast. "Nothing personal," Colbert insisted, "just trying to get beneath the surface." "If that were true," Downey replied, "you might have asked about my foundation's work with formerly incarcerated individuals. Instead, you fixated on the darkest chapter of my life." "Let me be direct," Colbert said, setting down his note cards. "There are people who believe your redemption story is primarily a PR construction. What would you say to those critics?" Downey looked directly at Colbert, his expression hardening. The question about his redemption being primarily a PR construction had clearly struck a nerve. "You know, Stephen," Downey said, leaning back in his chair, voice deliberately calm, "I came here tonight out of professional courtesy. Your team reached out to mine, emphasizing what a great opportunity this would be to discuss a film that hundreds of people worked incredibly hard on, a film with themes of forgiveness and second chances that might actually matter to your viewers." Studio audience members described the tension as palpable. Several later posted on social media that they felt like they were witnessing something intensely private that shouldn't have been broadcast. Instead, Downey continued, "You've chosen to use our time together to rehash the lowest points of my life, points I've addressed candidly in countless interviews over the years. I have to wonder why." Colbert shifted in his seat, the first sign of discomfort he'd shown the viewers. "No," Downey interrupted, raising a hand. "Let's not hide behind the viewers. This is a choice you made, and I'm genuinely curious about the motivation." Colbert's expression tightened. "I believe in substantive interviews. Celebrity culture has enough fluff." "Substantive," Downey repeated, nodding slowly. "You know what would be substantive? Discussing how addiction continues to devastate communities across this country, or how our justice system disproportionately punishes certain groups, or even the artistic choices in the film I'm here to promote. But that's not what this is about, is it?" At this point, according to multiple audience accounts, CBS executives had entered the studio and were conferring urgently with the floor director. Colbert's producer could be seen frantically gesturing from the wings. "I think you're mischaracterizing," Colbert began. "I don't think I am," Downey cut in, his voice still measured but firm. "You've spent our entire segment trying to provoke a reaction. You've brought up topics your producers explicitly agreed were off limits. You framed questions in the most antagonistic way possible. This isn't journalism or even entertainment. It feels personal." The studio had gone completely silent. Even the camera operators, according to later accounts, were exchanging nervous glances. "It's not personal," Colbert insisted, though his face had flushed slightly. "But your past is relevant to your current success." "My past is something I've never hidden from," Downey countered. "I've spoken about it openly for years. What I object to is your apparent determination to reduce me to my worst moments on a night when I'm here to celebrate what many critics are calling the best work of my career." Colbert's expression hardened. "Perhaps if you're this sensitive about legitimate questions, a public career isn't." "I'm going to stop you right there," Downey said, his tone shifting noticeably. He turned slightly to face the audience directly. "What you're witnessing right now is exactly what's wrong with how we talk to each other these days. When someone points out genuine bad faith, they're labeled sensitive or unable to take criticism." Downey turned back to Colbert. "I've sat through thousands of interviews. I've answered tough questions about every aspect of my life. The difference is context and intent, and your intent tonight seems clear." According to crew members who later spoke anonymously to entertainment reporters, Colbert's producer was now actively trying to end the segment, making slashing gestures across her throat, but Colbert appeared determined to have the last word. "My intent," Colbert said with visible irritation, "is to have a conversation that goes beyond mindless promotion." "No," Downey said, standing up unexpectedly. "Your intent was to create a viral moment at my expense to boost your ratings by trying to provoke an emotional response." "Well, congratulations, you've succeeded," the audience gasped audibly as Downey removed his microphone. Several phones captured the moment despite the show's strict no recording policy. "Robert, don't you think?" Colbert began, standing as well. "What I think," Downey said, voice now raised enough that the boom mics picked it up clearly even without his lavalier, "is that you've forgotten the difference between challenging someone and ambushing them, between asking tough questions and being deliberately provocative." Colbert's face had gone from flushed to pale. According to audience members in the front rows, a sheen of sweat had appeared on his forehead. "This isn't just about me," Downey continued, now addressing both Colbert and the audience. "This is about a culture that mistakes cruelty for candor and conflict for content. I've spent years rebuilding my life and career. I've been open about my struggles. I've tried to use my experience to help others, and I refuse to participate in reducing all of that to fodder for your ratings." With that, Downey turned and walked off the stage. The audience sat in stunned silence for several seconds before uncertain applause began. Colbert, visibly shaken, turned to the camera. "We'll be right back after these messages." He managed his usual smooth delivery, noticeably absent. The show cut to commercial, but the drama was far from over. Backstage, according to multiple crew accounts, was chaos. Downey's publicist could be heard demanding all footage be deleted. CBS executives huddled with legal representatives. Colbert retreated to his office, refusing to speak with anyone except his executive producer. When the broadcast resumed, Colbert appeared alone at his desk, visibly uncomfortable. "Well, that was something," he said with a forced chuckle that several critics later described as painful to watch. "We'll be back tomorrow with Jake Gyllenhaal." But the damage was done within minutes. Clips of the confrontation began circulating on social media despite CBS's attempt to contain them. By midnight, Downey Colbert was trending nationwide. Industry analysts began weighing in immediately, with the vast majority siding with Downey. "What we witnessed tonight was unprofessional at best, deliberately provocative at worst," entertainment journalist Kristen Barnes wrote in a piece that went viral overnight. Colbert seemed determined to create a confrontation rather than a conversation. CBS executives moved quickly to contain the fallout. By morning, an official statement expressed regret for their unfortunate miscommunication and praised Downey as a valued guest whose remarkable career speaks for itself. The statement conspicuously avoided mentioning Cola by name. Downey's team maintained official silence, but sources close to the actor told reporters he had no regrets about walking off. "Robert has spent decades answering questions about his past," one insider revealed. "Has never shied away from it. What he won't tolerate is someone using his journey as fodder for ratings." Industry observers noted the incident marked a rare misstep for Colbert, who had generally maintained good relationships with celebrity guests. Several actors publicly expressed support for Downey, with Marvel co-star Mark Ruffalo posting, "Some things matter more than publicity. Proud of my friend for standing up for himself." The consequences continued to unfold in the following days. Colbert's ratings saw an initial spike as viewers tuned in hoping for an apology or explanation, but then suffered a noticeable decline. Two high-profile guests reportedly rescheduled their appearances. CBS executives held emergency meetings to discuss the show's direction. Television critics weighed in with mostly scathing assessments. "Whatever Colbert's intent," wrote veteran critic Alan Sepinwall, "the result was uncomfortable viewing that served neither the guest nor the audience." Late-night television worked because of an unspoken agreement. Challenging questions are welcome, ambushes are not. Behind-the-scenes sources revealed that Colbert's staff was divided. Some defended their boss, suggesting Downey had overreacted to legitimate questioning. Others expressed concern about the show's direction. "There's been this push to create viral moments," one anonymous staffer told The Hollywood Reporter. "Sometimes that can cross a line." A week after the incident, Colbert finally addressed it directly on air. "I want to take a moment to talk about something that happened on our show recently." He began, his usual humor noticeably absent. "My interview with Robert Downey Jr. didn't go as planned, and for that I take full responsibility." The apology, while seemingly heartfelt, stopped short of admitting deliberate provocation. Industry insiders noted it came only after CBS executives reportedly insisted on it. Ratings data showed viewers were already Migrating to competing late-night shows for Downey, however, the incident seemed to only enhance his standing. Public sentiment overwhelmingly supported his decision to walk off, with many praising his composure under pressure. His film opened to strong box office numbers, with several critics noting that the Colbert incident had actually generated additional publicity. More significantly, the confrontation sparked a broader conversation about celebrity interviews and journalistic ethics. Media professors cited the exchange in classes. Industry panels debated the line between challenging questions and deliberate provocation. What makes this incident so notable, media analyst Jennifer Cho explained on CNN, is that it exposed something usually kept behind the scenes. Celebrities and hosts generally maintain the illusion of spontaneous, friendly conversation. Downey pulled back the curtain on the transactional nature of these appearances and the sometimes cynical calculation behind confrontational questions. 3 weeks after the incident, Downey broke his silence in a thoughtful Instagram post that avoided mentioning Colbert by name. "I believe in second chances because I've been fortunate enough to receive them. I believe in accountability because I've faced it, and I believe in walking away from situations that don't serve truth or compassion. Grateful for all the support and looking forward to conversations that build rather than divide." The post received over 5 million likes within hours, with celebrities and fans alike expressing support. In the comments, several addiction recovery organizations reported a spike in donations, attributing it directly to Downey's dignified handling of the situation. For CBS and Colbert, the fallout continued. Booking agents became noticeably hesitant to schedule their A-list clients on the EU show. Network executives quietly began discussions about the show's format, with sources reporting that Colbert was instructed to take a softer approach. With future guest television critics noted a distinct change in Colbert's interviewing style in subsequent weeks. The sharp-edged political commentary remained, but celebrity interviews became noticeably more differential. "It's as if he's overcompensating," noted one industry observer. "The pendulum has swung entirely in the opposite direction." Industry analysts pointed to the incident as a turning point in the relationship between celebrities and media. What Downey did was assert boundaries in a very public way, explained cultural critic Sasha Reynolds. He essentially said, "There's a difference between accountability and exploitation, between journalism and provocation, that resonated with people because we've become too accustomed to conflict as entertainment." 6 months after the confrontation, its effects were still evident. Colbert's ratings had stabilized but remained below their previous levels. Downey, meanwhile, received a humanitarian award for his work with formerly incarcerated individuals, making no reference to the incident in his acceptance speech, but emphasizing the importance of conversations that heal rather than harm. Perhaps the most lasting impact was on late-night television itself. Producers across networks reportedly revised their into processes with greater emphasis on transparency about topics to be discussed. Several hosts publicly committed to more substantive conversations that avoided gotcha moments in a strange way. Media historian Robert Chen observed, "This very public conflict may have actually elevated the discourse. It forced everyone to reconsider the purpose of these interviews. Are they merely promotional vehicles, opportunities for viral moments, or can there be meaningful exchanges that respect both the guest and the audience's intelligence?" For viewers who witnessed the confrontation firsthand, the memory remained vivid. "You could feel the mood in the studio change," recalled audience member Sarah Patel. "It went from uncomfortable to powerful." Downey wasn't having a meltdown or being a diva. He was setting a boundary and refusing to be reduced to his worst moments. I think a lot of people respected that. As for Downey and Colbert themselves, the two men reportedly have not spoken since that night. Industry insiders note that Downey's career has continued its upward trajectory, while Colbert has become noticeably more cautious in his approach to celebrity interviews. The irony, noted one. And he got one, just not the one he was hoping for. Sometimes the most powerful statement is simply walking away. This confrontation between Robert Downey Jr. and Stephen Colbert represents a fascinating moment in celebrity culture, where the carefully choreographed dance between interviewer and subject broke down in dramatic fashion. While Colbert appeared to be seeking a viral moment through antagonistic questioning, he instead became an object lesson in the limits of provocation as entertainment. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to comment where you're watching from, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved comeback stories meets a late-night host who went too far. In this video, we're diving into the shocking confrontation between Robert Downey Jr. and Stephen Colbert that had audiences gasping and studio executives scrambling. A simple promotional appearance for an upcoming film spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable television moments in recent memory, culminating in Downey walking off set while cameras were still rolling before I take you through this incredible story of ego tension and a celebrity who finally had enough. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me which celebrity interviews you find most revealing. Your support helps this channel continue bringing you the stories behind the headlines that the mainstream media won't tell you. Now let's set the stage for what should have been a routine late-night appearance. Robert Downey Jr., fresh off his latest critically acclaimed performance, was booked as the featured guest on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Industry insiders noted that Downey's team had specifically requested certain topics remain off-limits, a standard practice for celebrities of his caliber. What wasn't standard, however, was how blatantly these boundaries would be disregarded. The tension was apparent from the moment Downey walked onto the stage. Regular viewers of The Late Show immediately noticed something was off. The usual warm embrace between host and guest was replaced by a stiff handshake. Colbert's opening jokes fell flat as Downey offered polite but restrained laughter. Body language experts who later analyzed the footage pointed out how Downey positioned himself at the edge of his seat, almost as if preparing for a quick exit. "You look great, Robert. 10 years ago, would you have believed you'd be sitting here now?" Colbert began innocuously enough, referring to Downey's career resurgence. Downey nodded graciously. "Life has been kind. I'm grateful every day for the opportunities I've been given and the people who believe in me." Speaking of opportunities, Colbert continued, his tone shifting slightly. "You've become quite the franchise man. Iron Man, Sherlock Holmes. Some critics say you're just playing variations of yourself now. Any truth to that?" The studio audience's nervous laughter suggested they sensed the shift in atmosphere. Downey maintained his composure, though viewers noted a tightening around his eyes. "Every role is a new challenge," Downey responded smoothly. "I put everything I have into each character, whether they are wearing a high-tech suit or solving mysteries in Victorian London." What the audience didn't know was that backstage producers were already exchanging worried glances. According to production assistants who later spoke anonymously, Colbert had deviated from the approved question list within the first minute of the interview. This was unusual for Colbert, who typically adheres to pre-inter agreements. Something had clearly changed. As the interview progressed, the conversation shifted to Downey's upcoming projects. Colbert brought up Downey's reported 8-figure salary for his latest film, making pointed remarks about wealth inequality in Hollywood. The camera caught Downey's subtle glance toward his publicist standing offstage. "Your latest film deals with themes of redemption," Colbert said, leaning forward. "Something you know quite a bit about personally." The reference to Downey's well-documented past struggles was unmistakable. Studio audience members described feeling the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. What made this particularly uncomfortable was that Downey's troubled history had been explicitly marked as off-limits by his representatives. "We all have our journeys," Downey replied, his voice noticeably cooler. "The film stands on its own merits." Colbert pressed on, ignoring the warning signs. "But surely your personal experiences informed your performance. The parallels are striking between your character's fall from grace and your own difficulties." At this point, viewers could see Downey's publicist making frantic gestures to the show's producer. The cameras briefly cut away to a commercial, but when they returned, the tension had visibly escalated during that commercial break. According to studio audience members, Downey and Colbert had engaged in a TUR exchange out of microphone range. Returning from commercial, Colbert adjusted his tie and plastered on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Downey sat with perfect posture, his expression unreadable behind his tinted glasses. The interview was about to take a turn that neither man's PR team could have anticipated. The broadcast resumed with both men visibly tense. Colbert's usual jovial demeanor had been replaced by something more confrontational. According to crew members, heated words had been exchanged off-camera, with Downey reportedly warning Colbert that he was treading on dangerous ground. Something had shifted in Colbert's approach. While late-night hosts typically aim to make their guests look good, Colbert seemed determined to provoke a reaction. The studio audience had grown uncomfortably quiet, so Robert Colbert continued, straightening his note card. "Your character undergoes quite the transformation. Makes me wonder if there are transformations in your own life you wish it played out differently." Downey took a deliberate breath. "Every experience shapes who we become. I try not to dwell on hypotheticals." Colbert pressed further. "Let me be more specific. You've been open about your struggles with addiction, your time in prison. There was a point when many in Hollywood considered you unemployable." Downey's publicist stood up from her seat in the wings, phone in hand. Downey remained composed, though a muscle twitched in his jaw. "That's right. Downey acknowledged, "I've been fortunate enough to rebuild my career and my life. Fortunate indeed," Colbert interjected. "Some might say extraordinarily fortunate given the severity of your legal troubles. Do you think about others who've made similar mistakes but didn't receive the same second chances?" "I think about it every day," Downey said, his voice measured, "which is precisely why I've established my Foundation for Criminal Justice Reform and Addiction Recovery program." Speaking of support, Colbert pivoted. "There are rumors that your Iron Man co-stars had to advocate strongly for your casting given your history. Any truth to that?" The atmosphere grew tenser. A woman in the front row later told reporters she wondered if they should leave. "Stephen," Downey said quietly, removing his glasses, "I'm getting the sense you have something specific you're trying to say. Perhaps we should just cut to the chase." Colbert recovered quickly. "Fair enough. There's been industry talk about your compensation demands affecting production decisions. Your latest film reportedly went over budget, accommodating your requirements. According to reports, Downey's representatives had specifically negotiated that compensation discussions were off limits." "I find it interesting," Downey replied coolly, "that we're suddenly discussing contract negotiations on a late-night comedy show, particularly when my team was assured this would be about the film. Just trying to have an authentic conversation." Colbert responded with a dismissive wave. "Authenticity," Downey repeated softly. Interesting choice of words. Downey's publicist had moved closer to the stage. Crew members said she was furiously